Welcome, one and all, to the New York City Bar Association's annual Stimson Awards. As I greet you, I hope that everyone under the sound of my voice is healthy and well in both body and mind, as we are still experiencing some challenging times. We certainly thought that we would all be able to congregate at the illustrious City Bar building at 42 West 44th Street this evening. We thought that by now we would regularly be having grand in-person festivities, and our building is indeed open for business. But in an abundance of caution, we decided to make this a virtual event. However, I hope that there is excitement and joy permeating the airways and screens as we convene virtually to celebrate this evening. After all, this is an event at which we take the time to reflect upon and honor our rising stars who serve the public with great dedication, honor, and distinction. And it would not be possible for us to have such a celebration but for the time and efforts rendered by the members of our Stimson Medal Committee. The competition was fierce, as in our New York legal community, we have an embarrassment of riches and blessings when it comes to legal talent. So the committee had a very difficult task, and I want to thank them sincerely for their service. I especially wish to thank the Stimson Medal Committee Chair, Mark R. Hellerer of Pillsbury, Winthrop, Shaw, Pittman, LLP. Thank you so much, Mark, and to the other committee members for identifying some extra special attorneys who are deserving of special recognition. Now, I have admitted it on a few other occasions, but I will once again note on a personal level, I have a soft spot for government lawyers and those who serve in law enforcement. My younger brother, who has a brilliant legal mind, is currently a government attorney. In fact, he's a former JAG officer. Moreover, I have men in my family who have been and even currently serve as law enforcement officers. So I have a bit of an insider's view of what it takes to serve the public with grit and integrity. And I have immense respect for those who, quite frankly, forgo quite lucrative jobs in the private sector to participate instead in public service. So that's on a personal level, but then on a professional level, as City Bar President, I want to remind everyone that there are 6 areas of concentration, or the 6 pillars, for what I call our bar of hope during my leadership tenure. There's mental health and wellness, which is why I began my remarks in an effort to highlight and acknowledge the importance of our well-being, both mentally and physically. Then there's COVID-19 recovery projects, diversity, equity, and inclusion, access to justice, criminal justice reform, and of course, protection of the rule of law. And the Stimson Awards, in my opinion, especially embrace 2 of those areas, access to justice and protection of the rule of law. The Henry L. Stimson Medal stands for integrity, fairness, courage, and public service. And the list of those who have received the Stimson Medal in the past includes some truly extraordinarily gifted legal eagles. And now, here we are this evening, adding to that list yet several more names. We do so with great pride and gratitude, and we are filled with anticipation and a strong belief that tonight's recipients of the Henry L. Stimson Medal will continue to serve with distinction in our profession, and hence, we look forward to seeing and experiencing all of their potential and accomplishments in the future. Now, to our special guest Rising Star awardees. As you join the ranks of others who have previously received the prestigious Henry L. Stimson Medal, I truly hope that you will not only have an attitude of gratitude, but that this moment will further ignite a fire and passion within you to do that which is right, to protect the public good, to promote a strong democracy, and to fight for justice. I really want to thank you for your public service and ensuring access to justice. I want to commend you for exhibiting legal excellence in our profession and protecting the rule of law. And I wish to congratulate you for jobs very well done. The New York City Bar Association hereby salutes you. And now I will turn over the virtual stage to Mark. Take it away, Mark.
Thank you, Sheila. Good evening. As you can see, Sheila is a real tour de force, and we're pleased to have her open the ceremony tonight. I'd like to welcome you to this, the 29th annual Henry L. Stimson Medal Award ceremony. We had hoped to have a live presentation ceremony again this year, but obviously that could not be the case. We are truly appreciative of your participation by video, and we ask your patience with any glitches in the presentations. My name is Mark Hellerer. I'm chairman of the Stimson Medal Committee, a partner at Pillsbury, Winthrop, Shaw, Pittman, and a former AUSA in the Southern District of New York. Tonight is truly a special night at the City Bar. It marks the 29th time that the City Bar has honored the men and women of the U.S. Attorney's offices in the Southern and Eastern District of New York for their outstanding dedication, their sacrifices, and their service, not only to the city of New York, but to the nation as a whole. And we do this by honoring 2 AUSAs, 1 civil division and 1 criminal division from each of the 2 offices for upholding the best traditions of excellence and integrity that were established by Henry L. Stimson starting back in 1906, well over a century ago. First tonight, it's my honor to introduce our speaker and winners. Tonight, we're honored to have as our keynote speaker, the Honorable Margo K. Brody, the Chief Judge of the Eastern District of New York, and our award winners. First, from the Civil Division in the Eastern District, Seth D Eichenholz. Then from the Criminal Division, Whitman G.S. Knapp. And moving over to the Southern District, in the Civil Division, Michael James Byers. And finally, in the Criminal Division of the Southern District, Janice M. Eckenberg. We'd like to honor or acknowledge our honored guests this evening. We know that Audrey Strauss, the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District, and Jacqueline Kasoulis, the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District, are with us tonight, as well as John McEnany in the Southern District and Susan Riley in the Eastern District, both of whom have helped us enormously to move the ceremony and the selection process forward. Without their assistance, we would not have been able to do it. And tonight, I'd also like to give a shout out to Bill Mueller, longtime Executive Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of New York, who for many years helped us enormously to make this ceremony what it has become. Let me give you a brief introduction or background to the Stimson Medal. The medal was initiated by the Bar Association in 1992. And it honors the memory of Henry L. Stimson, who was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York from 1906 to 1909. He took the appointment from Teddy Roosevelt, who was president at the time. Stimson later continued his distinguished career in public service, serving 3 presidents as Secretary of War, Presidents Taft, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and President Truman, and also one as Secretary of State, President Hoover. But as Felix Frankfurter, one of Stimson's first assistants at the U.S. Attorney's Office, stated in his oral history, Stimson, quote, inherited an office of the United States Attorney, which by tradition up to that time was, with negligible exceptions, manned by hacks and mere job holders, close quote. To address that situation, Stimson radically changed the system and professionalized the office. He asked the deans of leading law schools to recommend to him promising recent graduates. He tripled the staff by paying salaries 1/3 the previous size, and he counted on the rewards of public service to attract enthusiastic and able young lawyers. The standards of excellence and integrity on which he insisted remain the hallmarks of the offices today in both the Southern and Eastern Districts. It is that tradition that we honor tonight. The award itself actually began 29 years ago. Ted Clark was the moving force. He was a former president of the City Bar Association. In his own right, he had been an outstanding litigator at the Winthrop Stimson law firm, and he had worked with Stimson himself during his career. Ted passed away several years ago, but really was the founding force behind the award itself. Now, the purpose of the award is to honor Stimson's memory and to promote the principles that he initiated at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And those principles, which are the criteria for determining the award recipients, are outstanding contributions to the public service, absolute integrity, candor and fairness in dealing with adversaries and the court, highly developed professional skills, professional courage, and conviction. The medal itself was created specifically for the award, and it is cast from a sculpture by Paul Manship, which is maintained at the Century Club. It's supported by contributions from the Pillsbury, Winthrop, Shaw, Pittman firm, which is the successor to the Winthrop Stimson firm. The selectors, the Stimson Committee, is comprised of Sheila Boston, the president of the City Bar, Brett Parker, the executive director of the City Bar, Harry Sandick from the Patterson Belknap firm, who is chair of the Federal Courts Committee, Susan J. Coleman, formerly City Bar vice president, who is a partner at the Jenner and Block firm, Stephen Weiner, who was the original chair of the Stimson Committee and is a retired partner at the Pillsbury firm, and Carolina Fornos, another partner at the Pillsbury firm. The selections are based on nominations from the U.S. attorneys. And as I mentioned before, this is always a really difficult task because all the nominees are outstanding, who are true stars in their own rights and have accomplished enormous things in their career at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Briefly, to look back before we make the awards, we take a moment to look back at the truly extraordinary accomplishment of some winners since they received the award. Many have continued their great work in the Southern and Eastern districts in leadership positions. Others have taken responsibility at law firms and public companies. Still others have gone on to other public service positions. And tonight we'd like to mention a few of them. Some of those who are current or recently have been in public service include Judge Richard Sullivan, who serves on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Three winners, Kathy Seibel, Paul Gardefee, and Valerie Caproni, who serve as judges on the Southern and East on the Southern District Bench. Sean Lane, who serves as the Southern District Bankruptcy Judge. James Cott serves as a magistrate judge in the Southern District. And Cheryl Pollack serves as a magistrate judge in the Eastern District. Until recently, Linda Lacewell served as the superintendent of the New York State Department of Financial Services. Richard Weber now serves as the general counsel of the New York State Department of Financial Services and formerly was the chief of the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Margaret Garnett serves as the commissioner of the New York City Department of Investigation, and Elizabeth Glazer, until recently, served as the director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. Some of those who had past public service position include three of our Stimson Medal Award winners, Alan Weingrad, James Comey, and David Kelly, who went on to become the U.S. Attorney either for the Eastern or Southern District of New York. And the fourth, Richard Donahue, recently served as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, and then was appointed Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Patrick Fitzgerald, another Southern District winner, formerly served as the U.S. Attorney in Chicago and was the Department of Justice Special Counsel in the Scooter Libby matter. Leslie Caldwell served as the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Criminal Division at the Department of Justice and was also the head of the Enron Task Force. More recent winners, Andrew Goldsmith and Zaneb Ahmad, along with Greg Andres, served as members of the Robert Mueller Special Counsel Investigation Team. Greg Andres also led the trial team in the Paul Manafort trial conviction. Greg, Jack Smith, Marshall Miller, Sung-Hee Soo, and David Bitkower all formerly held top spots in the criminal division of the Department of Justice. Rob Khuzami served as head of the Enforcement Division at the SEC, and then as Deputy Attorney, U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. Eric Korngold and Dieter Snell held leadership positions at the New York State Attorney General's Office. And as most of you know, one of our first medal winners was James Comey, who served as Director of the FBI and formerly Deputy Attorney General of the United States Department of Justice. So as you can see, our winners tonight enter a highly select group of dedicated public servants, and we honor them tonight. First, before we make the presentations, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Margo K. Brody, Chief Judge of the Eastern District, for providing our keynote address tonight. We are delighted to have her. Judge Brody assumed the bench in March 2012. In recognition of her qualifications, she was actually confirmed to her seat in the Senate in a vote of 86-2. Truly remarkable in this day and age. And she has risen to the role of Chief Judge this past February. She is a graduate of St. Francis College and the University of Pennsylvania Law School. After law school, she served as an assistant corporate counsel for the city of New York for 3 years, and then spent 5 years in private practice at the Carter Ledger firm. Then in 1999, she became an assistant U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of New York. During her 12 years in that office, she held a number of high-level positions, including Deputy Chief of General Crimes, Chief of General Crimes, Counselor of the Criminal Division, and Deputy Chief of the Criminal Division. In addition to that, for 10 months during the period 2005 and 2006, she served as a Department of Justice legal advisor to several Nigerian prosecutorial agencies. And in addition to that, during the years 2008 to 2018, she has also provided training to law enforcement officials from various countries in Africa, the Middle East, the Caribbean, and Eastern Europe on topics such as human trafficking and public corruption. Currently, she serves as an adjunct professor at the Brooklyn Law School. Clearly, Judge Brody brings a wealth of experience in the pursuit of justice, both here in the United States and internationally. And as such, she brings a unique perspective to the values we celebrate this evening. I'm pleased to welcome Chief Judge Brody.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you for inviting me to be your keynote speaker tonight. I've been asked to speak about my experiences as a former AUSA and a judge. And given the unprecedented challenges faced by the U.S. Attorney's offices, to comment on the importance of the offices to our justice system and what they strive to be. Let me start by reading a quote from what Stimson said about the job of being U.S. Attorney. When I was taken, as you might say, by the back of the neck and started out without anticipating it and without expecting it, and turned loose with nothing but my oath of office to guide me, the first feeling was that I had gotten out of the dark places where I had been wandering all my life and got out where I could see the stars and get my bearings once more. Stimson went on to say, I have felt that I could get a good deal closer to the problems of life than I ever did before, and felt that the work was a good deal more worthwhile. And one always feels better when he feels that he is working in a good cause. Stimson, as you know, and as Mark just informed us again, became the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York in 1906, at a time when the office consisted of only 8 lawyers, each making very little money even for those times. He was given a great task and no direction as to how to accomplish it. But he figured it out, a way to establish a preeminent office with highly qualified lawyers who were able to successfully investigate and prosecute some of the largest companies during his 3 years as the U.S. Attorney. In doing so, he left behind a blueprint that is still followed today, as Mark mentioned. And although the types and sophistication of crimes being prosecuted and civil matters being litigated have changed over the years, the job remains the same: to pursue justice without fear or favor, and to uphold the highest standards of the legal profession. Stimson faced many challenges, including recruiting qualified assistants and proving that these government lawyers, despite their more limited resources, could do so in a civil manner and could indeed investigate and prosecute those giant corporations and individuals, getting them to change their behavior at a time when the large corporate entities, such as the American Sugar Refining Company and the Bank of North America, were used to conducting business without anyone scrutinizing their conduct. He succeeded. His success was in no small part due to the lawyers who worked for him. To carry out this important work, he recruited talented young lawyers fresh out of law school. You heard Mark mention how he called up the deans of these schools. In part, it was because he could not compete with the private sector pay for the experienced attorneys, but also because they were young and eager and were willing to work tirelessly to get the job done. They were all underpaid. Even Stimson, who was being paid less than half of what he had been earning in private practice prior to taking the job. But they figured out the job and how to do it well. Stimson hoped that the young recruits, quote, would feel as he did the challenge of the job and take its opportunities in partial payment. The blueprint he created is still followed today. Other than the size of the Southern District, approximately 230 AUSAs, just a little bit bigger than it was then, and the Eastern District, with approximately 150 AUSAs, both offices operate in a similar fashion to when Stimson ran the Southern District of New York. Like he did then, the U.S. Attorney's offices still recruit young lawyers, although now you do need some experience. And while they recruit the best lawyers with impeccable credentials to perform the work of the offices, the AUSAs are just as underpaid now as they were then. Even the U.S. Attorney, who makes less than most first-year associates at many of the big New York law firms. But while today the Southern District and Eastern District have no problem recruiting talented lawyers to be AUSAs and do not have to forge a reputation, the reputation of the offices precedes them, they nevertheless have had other challenges to contend with over the most recent years, none more notable than the current pandemic, which has tested us all in different ways. The pandemic has trained the office's ability to develop and train new AUSAs and to move cases forward expeditiously. Because of the 50% density cap, many AUSAs are missing out on the countless personal interactions with the full complement of their colleagues, where the information and experiences that make up so much of the culture of the offices are shared. Despite the many advantages of Zoom, as we take full advantage of it today, it simply cannot replicate the intangible benefits of working side by side with your colleagues in the office to carry out the work of the offices. All of us who are former AUSAs remember the camaraderie and sense of community that comes from being in the trenches together, working those late nights, kicking around ideas, and struggling through issues with your fellow AUSAs, or exchanging stories about what some crazy judge, present company excluded, of course, lawyer or litigant did that day. It's those experiences that form the tightly knit fabric of the U.S. Attorney's offices and build bonds that last a lifetime. But despite these challenging circumstances, the AUSAs of both offices, as represented tonight by Whit, Seth, Michael, and Janice, are still carrying out the important work of the offices in a manner that would make Stimson proud. The traditions of hard work, successful prosecution, and civility are firmly intact. Today's AUSAs work just as hard as they did then and are successfully prosecuting some of the most sophisticated crime and civil matters. As a judge, I've been accused of holding AUSAs to a higher standard. I'm not conceding that I do, but assuming that is the case, it is because of the need to ensure the integrity of the justice system. As the Supreme Court stated in the 1935 case Berger versus United States, the United States Attorney is the representative not of an ordinary party, but of a sovereignty whose obligation to govern impartially is as compelling as its obligation to govern at all, and whose interest, therefore, is not that it shall win a case, but that justice shall be done. This excerpt, which is still frequently quoted today, is a reminder of the oath that every AUSA takes to well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office. It is a reminder of the impartiality and integrity of the offices that the offices must strive to achieve every day to ensure not only that individuals' rights are respected, but also that the rule of law and the public's faith in our justice system are maintained. It is a reminder, as Preet Bharara put in his book, Doing Justice, that AUSAs must do the right thing in the right way for the right reasons and do only that. A phrase he repeated many times to prosecutors in the Southern District when he served in Stimson's role. But as I am sure all the current and former AUSAs here tonight know, doing the right thing requires not only integrity, but also hard work. AUSAs work tirelessly at the job, not for the pay, not for the fame, but simply for the love of the job. As Stimson himself acknowledged later in life, being a U.S. attorney was his first love and remained his most satisfying job. Having served 12 plus years as an AUSA in the Eastern District, I recall well the sense of purpose, the excitement, and the satisfaction and pride that came from working hard and closely with my colleagues toward our common goal of serving the public. I thought then, no doubt, like the recipients do tonight, that I had the best job in the world. After all, I was prosecuting the bad guys, keeping the public safe, doing the job, even when others may not always agree with the goals of the office, striving to be the best that I could, even if it meant working 7 days a week continuously, always with the goal in mind of ensuring that justice was served. Plus, it really was a lot of fun. Now, however, having been a judge for 9+ years, I realized that my assessment was wrong. Being an AUSA is the second, not the first, best job. Although I will admit that there are times when I still wish I had the power of the U.S. Attorney's Office to decide what the proper charges should be in a given case and the proper plea. But as grateful as I am to be here, where I am now, I find it is in many ways more challenging than being an AUSA. Now, that may sound obvious since district judges handle both civil and criminal matters, and our district, as you know, have hefty dockets. What I am talking about, though, is the goals of the two positions. As an AUSA, the goal of the job seemed simpler and the aims clearer. Preet Bharara's simple but sage prescription to do the right thing in the right way for the right reason is harder to apply when you're a judge. Unlike the goal of prosecuting the bad guy or arguing your client's position in a civil motion, deciding as a judge what the right thing is sometimes elusive. For example, when sentencing a criminal defendant who has committed a serious crime but had a terrible upbringing, or resolving a motion to dismiss, where the claims might seem just, but the law doesn't fully support them. I have twice been asked by law students at different times, is there a way for AUSAs to gain the insight of judging so that they could see the world from the perspective of a judge? My answer was no. And I still believe that there is not. Even as an AUSA for so many years, I didn't appreciate how much more challenging it would be to be the one making the decisions as opposed to simply advocating for one. The differences between asking for a guideline sentence and actually imposing one is huge. Indeed, as a wise colleague, also a former prosecutor, once said, the view is very different when you're an AUSA looking at the judge and asking for a particular sentence than when you're the judge looking out at the defendant and his entire family and group of friends in the audience behind him. And while I believe such a perspective would maybe result in more AUSAs acknowledging that a guideline sentence is not necessary in every case, the justice system works best when we all stick to our respective roles. In an adversarial system, excellent advocacy, regardless of the position, helps the court clarify the issues and the law and reach more just outcomes. None of us are perfect, and we will falter from time to time. But the goal is to do excellent work, and there can be no doubt that both offices continue to strive for excellence. This is, in some small way, exemplified by the fact that, as with Stimson's recruits, at least 2 of whom became judges, including Supreme Court Justice Felix Frankfurter, the offices continue to produce judges and other leaders of the bar. Today, approximately 35 former Southern District AUSAs and 38 former Eastern District AUSAs are judges at the city, state, and federal level. Several AUSAs from both offices have gone on to hold other prominent public offices, and many have become partners at law firms. The offices are clearly living up to the ideals set by Stimson. And this year's medal recipients are resounding proof of that. With Seth, Michael, Janice, I congratulate you on your achievement. And I thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight.
Thank you very much, Judge. As anticipated, you've brought the breadth of your experience as an AUSA and on the bench to our proceedings tonight. And we're greatly appreciative of that. I'm sure many of our winners in our audience hope to assume the bench at some day. and your words are great guidelines for that. Thank you so much. So now let's turn to the awards themselves. And we will begin with the Eastern District of New York in the Civil Division, where our winner is Seth D Eichenholz. Seth graduated from Binghamton University and cum laude from Syracuse Law School. He joined the office in 2007, following 5 years with the New York City Corporation Council. He became Deputy Chief of the Civil Division in 2019. He has personally litigated over 250 cases, negotiating fair and just resolutions of most of them, and has successfully tried 9 cases to a verdict. And I'm told has never lost a case he's taken to trial. His practice is largely focused on defending the United States in difficult, high-risk, high-exposure cases, including medical malpractice, wrongful death actions, and employment discrimination claims. He has also handled important affirmative cases, seeking to vindicate the rights of institutionalized persons and the mentally ill, and has obtained sweeping and permanent injunctive relief to prevent mail fraud from being perpetrated against vulnerable and elderly individuals. Recently, Seth has been at the forefront in skillfully and successfully defending the government in challenges resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. He supervised a team that defended a cutting-edge lawsuit brought on behalf of prisoners, alleging that the staff and administration of the Metropolitan Detention Center were deliberately indifferent to the prisoners' health and safety by failing to take appropriate measures to protect them from contracting the virus. After a personal inspection of the facilities, along with the then U.S. Attorney Richard Donahue, and an evaluation of the conditions there, Seth and his team persuaded the court that adequate steps had been taken to mitigate the risks and that judicial relief was denied. Thereafter, Seth and his team engaged in mediation conducted by former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. He helped to develop from scratch a telephone and video conferencing system for use by the courts and defense counsel to move criminal proceedings forward during the pandemic. He has also continued to coordinate with the MDC staff to mitigate conditions and implement those changes. As Deputy Chief, Seth has been responsible for managing the Civil Division's monetary defensive practice and overseeing hundreds of cases which comprise the vast majority of the division's workload. He has become an invaluable resource to all assistants in the division and a trusted and respected colleague whose advice, input, and insight has strengthened the division's case handling and advocacy skills. In addition, Seth provides regular training to his colleagues on discovery, trial practice, and significant legal issues. He has also been involved in training at the Department of Justice National Justice Center and has actually helped to develop the City Bar program in Federal Practice 101. We recognize Seth's outstanding career in the Eastern District in both line and supervisory capacities by conferring upon him the Stimson Medal. Congratulations, Seth.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you to the New York City Bar Association, President Sheila Boston, and the rest of the Stimson Medal Committee for selecting me for this honor. Also, thank you to Jackie Kasoulis and Mark Lesko, the U.S. attorneys who nominated me for this award, for your belief in and recognition of my work. Thank you to Chief Judge Brody for being here today and for your kind remarks. And congratulations to my fellow winners, Janice Eckenberg and Michael Byers from the Southern District and Knapp from my district. I'm really humbled to receive this award with this level of recognition. When Mark called me to tell me I had received the award, I think all I managed to get out was, thank you so much, it's an honor, a few times, because I was pretty speechless and pretty emotional. And listening to the accomplishments of the previous award winners and knowing the accomplishments of those being honored today, I still sit here in awe of being in the company of so many accomplished people who have received this award through the years. And the fact that I'm getting this recognition just by doing my job as an AUSA in the Eastern District of New York, no offense, Judge Brody, but in my opinion, still the best job there is, makes it even more special to me. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the kind of work that I do for the government and why I love it so much, and a little bit about how I got to be here. Working for the government has allowed me to show up, bring my values, be my authentic self, and be successful. And those values are a direct result of the lessons and support of those I consider family, both my actual family and those friends and colleagues who over the years have become part of my chosen family. I'm so grateful to have so many of them listening today, but at the outset, I want to thank my husband, Michael, and my incredible, super smart 6-month-old daughter, Samantha, who thanks to the miracles of Zoom is watching this right now, my brother, Eric, and my parents for being there always as the constant in my life. My uncle, Eddie Stam, is an AUSA in the Southern District of Florida's Criminal Division, and he first modeled for me what it means to be an attorney working in the public interest and taught me about the rewarding work of government service. And at one point, when encouraging me to pursue a career in public service while I was still in law school, he said, "Listen to me, Seth, and you'll be a happy lawyer." He paused for a second. Maybe not a rich lawyer, but a happy lawyer. And he was right on all accounts. Some of you also may know this part of my story, but I started my career in public service along with my twin brother, Eric. In fact, when we came out of law school, we both graduated from the same law school, our resumes were so similar that when we received offers to work for the New York City Law Department Corporation Counsel, the director of legal recruitment for the city told Eric that if he and I were actually the same person trying to collect 2 paychecks, they'd figure it out. But we are, of course, different people. I'm now at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and Eric's still at Corporation Counsel and was just yesterday promoted to the executive staff there. So quick shout out to him and congratulations to him for that. Working for the city, though, gave me the skills I needed to be a successful litigator and introduced me to the meaningful work of defending the government. It's hard work. It involves grappling with difficult facts and often challenging clients, as some on the call know, and does not often come with the recognition or thanks that other pursuits may have. And that's another reason why it's just so special to be here today. But done right, defending civil litigation can help identify and solve various issues and challenges, and of course, get just results for all involved. And don't get me wrong, it's not all about resolving cases. I've enjoyed trying the right case, like the one where a plaintiff was caught staging messy newspapers all over the floor of a post office the day after he allegedly slipped and fell on those very newspapers on the floor. Or the medical malpractice case against a federally funded community health center, where the plaintiff alleged that the doctors failed to communicate with her important information about her care. And yet through discovery and at trial, we were able to show using cell phone records and GPS data that the doctors actually did contact the plaintiff on the exact dates and times documented in the medical record. It's in those cases where advocacy makes a difference. And that's why I find them so exciting. Developing evidence through discovery and making those strategic decisions that could win your case. And it's also in the trenches of that contentious litigation where friendships are forged. And it makes me think of, it's been alluded to throughout the event so far, those pre-COVID times where I'd go to lunch with my colleagues regularly and we'd talk endlessly about our cases and help each other through the unique challenges in each one. The most fulfilling work I've done, though, has come in defending the most contentious, high exposure cases in the Eastern District. It is meaningful to litigate, and more importantly, developed impactful resolutions in these cases, where I could recommend compensation for a meritorious claim, or structural changes that improve conditions and ensure that some kind of tragic history does not repeat itself. And as mentioned earlier, the most recent and ongoing, so I'm going to be a little vague here, example of this work is when I found myself at the center of most of the Eastern District's COVID-related litigation involving the Bureau of Prisons. And I've gotten to work collectively with talented co-counsel, hardworking attorneys and staff at the BOP, along with a mediation team, opposing counsel, the principals of the federal defenders, and of course, Chief Judge Brody. We developed a system of remote access at BOP facilities, which help keeps the criminal justice system functioning through a major worldwide crisis. I will always be so proud to be a part of a group of talented attorneys and judges who played a major role in that success. It wasn't and isn't without its setbacks and imperfections, but even on the days where there are curveballs or seemingly insurmountable issues, where I feel like I'd be more productive banging my head against the wall over and over again, I still enjoy every minute of it because the group I work with seems to find ways to overcome those issues and meet those challenges. And as mentioned, on top of all of that, as deputy chief, I get to mentor other AUSAs, work that I'm passionate about because I see it as giving back that which made me the attorney I am today. Along with all of the U.S. attorneys who I've had the privilege of working for, my supervisors have been great teachers, starting with Susan Hallaton, my supervisor when I was at Corporation Counsel, to my supervisors at the U.S. Attorney's Office, Gail Matthews, Artemis Lakakis, Susan Riley, and my current supervisor, Joe Maritolo. And same with my colleagues on the Civil Division Management team, Varney Nelson, Rich Hayes, Jim Knapp, and Artemis Lakakis. And the colleagues I work with directly as deputy chief, including Sean Green Delgado, Katie Mahoney, Dara Olds, Chris Volpe, David Cooper, Melanie Spate, Shana Priori, and Rachel Balaban. I actually could probably go on and list everyone I've worked with in the Civil Division, but I need to wrap this up at some point. But first, a quick shout out also to the amazing support staff I work with, who are like family to me, Laura Almodovar, Harriet Buggs, and Eva Hickman. To everyone I work with, you inspire me, teach me something new every day, and are a large part of why it is just so much fun to do my job. And I want to conclude by speaking to the attorneys who, like me, sometimes tune into these events to learn about how others built their careers, maybe thinking a bit about their own. To you, I offer this simple advice. Do only work you truly love. Always consider all perspectives. Do good, seek justice. And if you follow my advice, you may yourself continue to be a happy and successful lawyer. Maybe not a very rich lawyer, but a happy one. Thank you again for this incredible honor.
Congratulations. And thank you, Seth. Next in the criminal division, Whitman G.S. Knapp. Whit graduated magna cum laude from Middlebury College and from the University of Virginia Law School. After several years in a private firm, followed by service in the New York County District Attorney's Office and the New York State Attorney General's Office, he joined the Eastern District in 2008. He has served in its general crimes, organized crime, and business and securities fraud sections. In April 2017, He was appointed Deputy Chief of the Business and Securities Fraud Section. Subsequently, in November 2019, he was promoted to Chief of the General Crime Section, a position he still holds. Throughout his tenure, Witt has been at the forefront in leading numerous investigations and prosecutions with respect to a wide range of cases involving complex financial and securities fraud, organized crime, narcotics, public corruption, and official misconduct. For example, he led the prosecution of a complex and intricate $147 million securities fraud scheme that stole money from hundreds of investors, many of them senior citizens living on fixed income or retirement savings by luring them and pressuring them into purchasing losing or worthless stock. The defendants ranged from high-flying corporate insiders to boiler room cold callers, as well as licensed professionals. 14 of the 17 charged individuals pleaded guilty, and the remaining 3 were convicted after lengthy trials. Witt also led a complex multi-industry investigation into systemic construction fraud in New York City. The efforts of his team resulted in charges, admissions of wrongdoing, and $30 million in victim restitution and penalties from some of the nation's largest construction companies. Other matters on which Witt led the investigation and successful prosecution include an $8.5 million bank fraud scheme involving a New York-based mortgage lender, a conspiracy by a former Massachusetts gubernatorial candidate and another defendant to steal more than $15 million from hedge fund investors and banks, a conspiracy by former presidents of 2 retail electronics giants to obtain more than $11 million in kickbacks from their company suppliers, and then the conviction of 8 members and associates of the Gambino organized crime family on racketeering and extortion charges, as well as the conviction of another Gambino crime family associate on multiple charges, including 2 murder predicate acts. And finally, the conviction of a defendant for witness tampering and threatening a government witness who was set to testify at trial against a Gambino crime family soldier. Among his supervisory roles, Witt has also served as the office's healthcare fraud coordinator. Of particular note, though, Witt has also provided extraordinary leadership of the General Crime Section during the COVID-19 pandemic, effectively addressing the difficult challenges of training and supervising new AUSAs. He has been physically present in the office throughout the pandemic. Witt's longstanding and ongoing contributions to the office and to public service make him a most worthy recipient of the Stimson Medal. Congratulations, Witt.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Judge Brody, for your keynote remarks. I'd like to express my appreciation to the Stimson Medal Committee and the New York City Bar Association for this great honor. I also want to thank Jackie Kasoulis, our acting United States Attorney, not only for nominating me for this award, but more importantly for the leadership that she's shown in steering our office through turbulent times. I'd like to acknowledge the EDNY General Crime Section deputies and the more than 40 talented General Crimes assistants with whom I've worked closely for almost 2 years now. It's been a real pleasure. I'd also like to acknowledge my family and my parents. In particular, I want to thank my husband, Dave, who understands my passion for what I do and provides me with seemingly limitless love and support in a career that is at times as demanding for our family as it is rewarding for me. It's a true privilege and honor to receive this medal, and it means a lot to me to have received it at this time. When I first came to New York nearly 30 years ago, like now, we were fighting a pandemic. At that time, it was not COVID, but AIDS. This last year, time and again, I've been struck that we're all confronting many of the same questions that were presented 30 years ago. For example, How can we protect ourselves and others from the virus? When should we get tested? Who has it? What will happen to them? Will there ever be a cure? And ultimately, we've all felt that same disheartening feeling of, will this ever end? Just like today, there was tremendous uncertainty when I came to the city. I remember then, like today, struggling at times to live and work and experience joy in the face of a relentless, oppressive force of nature. At that difficult time, decades ago, it seemed unlikely that an openly gay young person could hope to make a career as I have in criminal prosecutors' offices, places that were reputed to be so culturally conservative. It seemed implausible then that an openly gay person could succeed in an organization like the Department of Justice, which is so much a part of the establishment. It would not have occurred to me then to imagine that I could receive an award like this one, much less that I could be married and acknowledge my husband when I received it. I can't speak about this progress without being mindful that many generations of women and men before me who were not able, or rather, there were many generations of men and women before me who were not able to pursue the career of their choice and dreams because of who they were, or without thinking about those who did, but for whom the price was to live in secrecy and fear. And never far from mind are all the talented people who could not pursue their dreams because they did not survive the last pandemic. In a nutshell, I am beyond fortunate to be able to be here today and receive this award. So today, just as when I arrived in the city, we're fighting a pandemic. Today, not unlike at that time, we struggle in our society to respect each other and acknowledge the dignity of others. Today, however, I am confident that we can make progress along the lines of what I've seen since my arrival in New York at the height of the last pandemic. I hope and believe that through discipline and the miracles of modern science, we will subdue COVID, much as we have made strides against AIDS. I hope and believe that today we will recognize just how important it is to treat each other with dignity and respect, the kind of respect that has grown over the last few decades and made it possible for a gay person such as myself to be myself and serve the country as best I can. I look forward to gathering with you all again in a year, and I trust it will be in person, to celebrate not only next year's honorees, but also the progress that I am confident we will have made. Once again, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to the Stimson Medal Committee for this wonderful award.
Thank you, Whit, and congratulations. The award's well deserved. Now we move over to the Southern District of New York. And first, the Civil Division winner is Michael James Byers. Michael came to the law in a somewhat unusual way. He was a full-time soloist dancer in the New York City Ballet while attending Fordham University, from which he graduated summa cum laude. 4 weeks after his final performance, he began his career at NYU Law School. Following graduation, he clerked for Judge Rena Raggi, both at the district court level and then at the Court of Appeals, and also for Judge Kim Wardwell of the Ninth Circuit. Following 5 years as a litigation associate at the Cleary Gottlieb firm, Michael joined the office in 2009. Since 2018, Michael has served as deputy chief and now chief of the immigration unit. Michael has successfully handled several significant cases involving the Americans with Disabilities Act. In 2012, he led the investigation of a complaint that Lincoln Center's Avery Fisher Hall was non-compliant with the ADA. After protracted negotiations, he resolved the matter with the simultaneous filing of a complaint and a consent decree that required improvements throughout the facility. including adding accessible seating at a variety of locations throughout the concert hall, accessible restrooms, and on all floors, and accessible parking. Subsequently, in 2016 and 2017, Michael led an ADA investigation into complaints that New York schools were refusing to honor physician orders authorizing the parents or guardian of a student with diabetes to adjust the dosage and timing of diabetes medication to be administered at school. Michael convinced the New York State Education Department to amend its guidelines and allow communication of that parental knowledge to school nurses and other healthcare providers. This amendment affected approximately 5,200 families across New York State. Michael has handled a large variety of important cases over the years, including obtaining full restitution of $18 million in Medicare and Medicaid losses in a pharmaceutical bankruptcy, suing the Transport Workers Union Local 100 and leading the union to rerun elections that were non-compliant with federal law, and handling a delicate estate matter that resulted in the transfer of 3 significant works of Chinese calligraphy to the Smithsonian Museum. In the last few years, as deputy chief and then chief of the immigration unit, Michael has led the office during a period of intense activity and visibility. There has been an enormous volume of typical cases, as well as programmatic challenges to various immigration policies. In addition to his supervisory responsibilities, Michael has continued to litigate a large number of cases personally. The litigated matters have increased tremendously with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, with habeas filings increasing from an average of 2 or 3 new cases per week to more than double that amount, and with emergency applications continuing to be filed in virtually every habeas case. Michael has strived to devote personal attention to each case, exploring non-litigation and just resolutions wherever possible. Having carefully and creatively addressed some of the most impactful cases in the office, and having led the immigration unit with dedication, diligence, and compassion, Michael is highly deserving of the Stimson Medal. Congratulations, Michael.
Thank you very much, Mark. And thank you, Sheila, and the New York City Bar Association and the Stimson Medal Committee for selecting me for this amazing and humbling honor. And thank you, Chief Judge Brody, for your inspiring and wise remarks. And congratulations to Seth, Whit, and Janis. I'm thrilled to be among you celebrating tonight. I also would like to thank U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss for nominating me and the others in our office who were involved in that process. I'm honored to serve under you, as well as under the former U.S. attorneys that I've served under, Lev Dassin, Preet Bharara, June Kim, and Jeff Berman, as well as under Civil Chiefs James Cott, Andrew Schilling, Sarah Shadowski, and Jeff Ostreicher. I also want to say a special thank you to the judges for whom I clerked, Judge Radji and Judge Wardlaw. I learned so much from my clerkships and saw so many fine assistants stand up in court, including numerous assistants from the Eastern District U.S. Attorney's Office during my district court clerkship. Now, I had hoped that we would be in person today, but the Zoom format has allowed me to invite family and friends who would not otherwise be here. You can't have a 14-year dance career with the New York City Ballet and wind up spending over 12 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office without a lot of support and encouragement. So thank you to these important people who have been there for me along the way. And first and foremost, to my wife, who has helped me in so many ways and has earned this medal as much as I have. At the most recent in-person Stimson Medal ceremony in 2019, the Southern District Civil Division recipient was Joe Cordero, my predecessor as Immigration Unit Chief. Joe said something that particularly resonated with me, which is that our civil division is a special place to work because somebody always has your back. Now, being an AUSA, as you've heard, carries with it the awesome responsibility to do justice fairly and impartially, as Henry Stinson would attest, and as you've heard from Chief Judge Brody. And as Joe recognized, our colleagues always have our back in our efforts to achieve this mission. Now, this resonated with me at the time because during my 8 years as a line assistant, I dealt with numerous challenges in the many different and often complicated areas of the law that we have to master and quickly. There were always colleagues willing to talk through sticky issues, provide suggestions and guidance, and otherwise lend a hand. It has also been true in the 3+ years that I've been a supervisor in the Immigration Unit, first as Deputy Chief to Joe, and then as Chief since July 2018. My colleague, Deputy Chief Brandon Waterman, has been stellar. Immigration Unit AUSAs Josh Kahani, Rebecca Friedman, and Jessica Rosenbaum have given their all while juggling numerous cases, and other AUSAs from outside the unit have helped with many other cases, including the programmatic challenges that Mark referred to. For example, whether immigration courts can hold hearings using video conferencing as provided by Congress. Now, somehow our new cases, despite increasing in number, have always found a home. And we have had invaluable assistance from our support staff, including our paralegal, Mona Leung, our legal secretary, Jennifer Negron, our civil clerk, Lisa Ahern, and numerous others. But Joe's observation about people having your back has never been truer than over the past 18+ months. Our immigration docket covers a lot of different types of cases, including agency decisions about different types of visas, green cards, naturalization. But when the pandemic hit, our detention-related docket exploded to nearly 3 times our normal intake, from 2 or 3 new cases a week to 7 or more. Once a case was filed, our judges often set briefing schedules and hearings very quickly. And many of these cases were properly transferred to other districts, but we had a large number of cases that remained with our office. Our civil chief, Jeff Ostreicher, began assigning cases outside of the immigration unit, starting with the most junior AUSAs and moving up the seniority list. Over the next month, more than 24 AUSAs from outside our unit took on immigration detention cases, and our deputy chief took on additional review. And taking an immigration habeas case is a substantial commitment. Our cases were not only faster paced than ever before, but they often required more work in the form of supplemental filings and additional court conferences. And this is not a complaint. This is just what happens during the pandemic. Throughout, my colleagues worked tirelessly to ensure that we provided the quality of representation for which our office is known. And amazingly, they did this in addition to everything else they were doing, which includes protecting our food supply, our national security, our environment, civil rights, collecting restitution and judgments, handling Social Security cases by the hundreds, and all of the other challenges posed by the pandemic. I'm really grateful to our civil chief for this great mobilization effort. But I also need to mention that always one to lead by example, Jeff himself took on 3 such cases even before his name came up in the seniority chart. And he helped us in numerous other ways, including by regularly sending us an encouraging email at the end of the day with the latest exploits of our division in court and off. If I had the time to read you those 288 emails, that would tell only a small part of the story of the great work of our division. Jeff, we are all so very grateful for your leadership during this time. But my colleagues have also had my back in a very different way. Over the last 18 months, my work has largely been done in a hallway in my apartment, which is where I'm sitting right now. As the work from home parent in our household, I have not been as available as I would like to my family, despite being so visibly present I thought back to the advice that then Civil Chief James Cott gave me at my swearing in. There are times when you're going to feel that you're doing okay as an AUSA, but not so well as a parent. And times when you'll feel like you're doing okay as a parent and not as well as an AUSA as you'd like, but probably doing okay, just fine, I think. Now, I've wondered about Judge Cott's advice, especially lately, and hoping that it actually were true. Well, one day, my then 14-year-old son came into my very modest hallway of justice. Now, usually this is because right behind me is a closet where we keep, among other things, snacks. But this time he said, speaking for himself and his then 9-year-old sister, "Dad, just wanted to tell you that we get it. It's okay." My response was, "Oh, what do you mean?" And he said, "You know how bad you feel when you miss dinner or a Friday night movie night, or you can't always talk to us. But it's okay. People like you are our government right now. Good luck." And then he went off. And this exchange left me with a few observations. First, it seemed to indicate that Judge Cott was right. Despite all, my kids were probably okay. And that part of what made them okay was that they took comfort in knowing that there were dedicated government lawyers all around the city and beyond who are working hard to provide stability at a time of great uncertainty and national peril. So once again, you had my back. Second, and relatedly, this also helped me to realize how much our shared commitment to our principles undergirds our system of justice. And we often think of justice as having an awesomeness that derives from democratic principles. Chief Judge Brody quoted for us from Berger versus United States, very stirring words telling us that the obligation to govern impartially is just as compelling as the obligation to govern at all. And the notion that doing justice is a great and solemn obligation is represented in the grandness of our courthouses. The main hall is the U.S. Department of Justice in D.C., and the ceremonial room at the New York City Bar Association, where we ordinarily would be tonight. This is all true. But it's equally true that the strength of our system of justice derives from our personal belief and commitment to these principles, even when we are dispersed, facing uncertainty and loss, sitting at our own dining tables, home offices, and hallways of justice. So I am truly grateful to serve alongside all of you. It is a special honor to receive the Stimson Medal, as it means that I've played some part of this shared endeavor. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael, and congratulations on your award. And last, we have Janice Eckenberg from the Criminal Division in the Southern District. Janice graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a degree in economics. She then worked at the New York City Parks Department, where she developed and ran a training program to help transition hundreds of New Yorkers to full-time employment. She then attended UCLA Law School, and she joined the office in 2008, following several years as an associate at the Case-Scholer law firm. During her career as a federal prosecutor, she has prosecuted dozens of significant cases, has trained generations of prosecutors, and has helped lead the criminal division on several important matters, including the office's adjustment to remote work during the unprecedented coronavirus pandemic. She is currently deputy chief of the Southern District's criminal division. Before rising to a senior leadership position in the criminal division, Janice had a distinguished career as a line prosecutor, tenaciously fighting against fraud and corruption. In recent years, she acted as lead counsel for two of the office's most significant corruption trials in 2017 and 2018. United States versus Joseph Prococo resulted in the conviction of a top former aide to the governor of New York and others for their roles in honest services fraud and bribery conspiracy after two trials, one lasting 2 months. Then in U.S. versus Ninglap Seng, it resulted in the conviction of a Macau-based billionaire real estate developer for Foreign Corrupt Practices Act violations, money laundering, and bribery of United Nations officials. The conviction came after a contentious 5-week trial. 4 other defendants, including a former president of the UN General Assembly, pleaded guilty. Between 2010 and 2015, as a member of the Complex Frauds and Cybercrime Unit, Janis successfully delivered justice for scores of vulnerable victims. For example, in United States versus Levin, 7 defendants pled guilty or found guilty after a hard-fought 3-week trial. That case involved a massive consumer fraud scheme that victimized more than 1,000 individuals across the United States. Her other significant fraud convictions include the prosecution of an investment advisor who stole $20 million from his clients, a prosecution of 3 defendants for their roles in 4 interrelated fraud schemes, which involved more than $100 million in losses, a mortgage fraud scheme that duped the Department of Housing and Urban Development and several banks into issuing millions of dollars of federally insured mortgage loans to individuals for homes they could not afford, a prosecution of a rabbi who sold Torahs that he falsely claimed to have rescued from war-torn areas throughout the world, the conviction of a doctor charged in one of the office's largest healthcare prosecutions, and the conviction of 27 defendants for immigration fraud, including 4 after a 1-month trial. After assuming the deputy chief position in 2017, Janis became a critical member of the senior leadership team, managing over 150 criminal prosecutors, crafting criminal division policy, and advising on trial strategy. Her oversight has included all the senior white-collar units, as well as general crimes and narcotics. She's also entrusted with several sensitive projects, including her role as Project Safe's childhood coordinator, overseeing the office's prosecution of child exploitation crimes. Somehow, Janis has also found time to teach at Cordero and New York University Law School, and has been a regular guest speaker at Columbia Law School. It is a pleasure to recognize Janis's extraordinary contributions to the administration of justice by awarding her the Stimson Medal. Congratulations, Janis.
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm incredibly honored. About a week ago, we marked the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. And as I'm sure many of you did, I thought back to where I was that day. At approximately 6 a.m., I boarded a plane at JFK Airport bound for Los Angeles. Just under 3 hours later, we were abruptly grounded after terrorists struck the first tower. As we deplaned in Kansas City, Missouri, I learned of the unfolding tragedy on TVs playing in the airport gate, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude for having landed safely. Among the enduring memories of September 11th is the way that New Yorkers came together to rebuild, to bring our city back. And we find ourselves doing it again in the wake of COVID. And while many of us have sheltered at home, and I imagine are there right now, first responders and public servants at hospitals, at courthouses, at police stations, at schools have come to work every day during the pandemic, often putting themselves at risk to keep us safe and to keep our city functioning. For as long as I can remember, I've wanted to work in public service. I believe in the power of government to do good things, especially in times of crisis. I come from a family of teachers and public servants, and after September 11th, my desire to give back and my belief that I belonged here in New York City grew ever stronger. That desire to serve ultimately brought me to the U.S. Attorney's Office, where I've been incredibly lucky to serve my city and my country since 2008. I'm honored to be recognized for my work, particularly among such an esteemed group of Stimson recipients, past and present. And I'm equally honored to do the work, including helping our office evolve its thinking around the prosecution of youthful offenders and having the privilege of training generations of prosecutors. And I'm especially honored to have prosecuted public corruption cases which support honest, hardworking public servants by continuing to send the message that no one is above the law and that there will be serious consequences for those who corrupt their public office. I'm particularly proud to have led the team that successfully prosecuted Joseph Percoco, who you just heard was a top aide to former Governor Cuomo, and he was convicted of accepting over $300,000 in bribes. Judge Valerie Caproni, a former Stimson winner herself, presided over Joe Percoco's prosecution. And at sentencing, she said, "There are few crimes more serious than public corruption." She sternly warned other public servants who might consider enriching themselves while purporting to serve the public that the court would, quote, "show no mercy." I wouldn't be here without the support of so many colleagues, friends, and family. I'd especially like to thank the City Bar, Mark Hellerer, Sheila Boston, and the entire Stimson Committee for this incredible honor, and Judge Brody for those inspiring words. I'd like to thank two of my mentors, Mike Rogoff, who I know is out there somewhere, and Jane Parver, for exposing me to the SDNY and for helping me get the job. To the leadership of our office through the years, in particular, Mike Garcia, Lev Dassin, Preet Bharara, June Kim, Jeff Berman, Audrey Strauss, John McEnany, Elon Graff, Lisa Zornberg, and Laura Berger, for hiring me, for promoting me, inspiring me with their own public service, and supporting me in my professional development. And a special thank you to Jeff and Audrey and to Laura for their steady leadership through what can only be described as some pretty strange times. All of my talented SDNY colleagues, especially my trial partners, my chiefs, my general crimes colleagues, who I also know are out there, and all of our phenomenal special agents, paralegals, and staff who are far too numerous to name. And the amazing law enforcement partners I've had the opportunity to work with over the years, who motivate me with their often lifelong commitment to public service. And finally, my family. First, my grandmother, who let me sleep on her fold-out couch the summer that I studied for the bar. She's no longer with us, but I really wish she was here to see this for so many reasons. Among them, that she frankly never really understood my job. Because when the Percoco case was in the news a lot, she would always let me know that Preet Bharara was doing an excellent job with the case. To my parents, Stephen and Sandra, who are downstairs, and to my mother and father-in-law, Judy and Paul in Montreal, and to my sisters-in-law, Nancy and Lynn, who I think are also watching this from afar, who have always supported me and my family in hundreds of ways, big and small. And an extra thank you to my parents, who raised me to believe that I could do anything if I just set my mind to it. To my boys, Henry and William, who are 11 and 7, for whom I strive to be a good mom and a prosecutor who can make them proud. And as Michael said, that's not always an easy task. And to my husband, Michael, my rock, who inspires me every day with his bravery in the face of very trying times. And he continues to wow me with his dedication to our family and his unwavering support of my career. Before I conclude, I'd like to share one final thought based on a saying that was popularized by Muhammad Ali. Quote, "Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth." I hope this award ceremony and the incredibly inspiring stories of each of my fellow Stimson winners will serve as reminders that we should all do what we can to pay generously for our room here on earth. Thank you very much for this amazing honor.
Thank you, Janice, and congratulations. At this point, I'd like all of you collectively that are out there, wherever you are, to join in a round of applause for all of our great winners. And each of the winners, I suggest that you bask in the virtual standing ovation that is going on at this moment. Congratulations to all of you. Tremendously extraordinary accomplishments and very deserving winners of the Stimson Medal. A few closing thoughts on behalf of the committee. We want to note that these standards of excellence and integrity and public service celebrated here tonight don't just happen. They require constant attention, effort, and yes, often courage. Protecting the rule of law and our fundamental legal institutions and traditions is critical to our American system of justice. This is particularly true when these institutions come under attack, as they seem to on a regular basis these days. These two offices are shining examples of the U.S. justice system and must be protected. And speaking to all the AUSAs in these offices, you are on the front line in defending the rule of law. The mantra to do the right thing, as mentioned earlier, should guide your work on a daily basis. We in the City Bar trust that you will continue to work to preserve these principles and traditions, including integrity and independence. With that, we conclude this year's Stimson Medal ceremony. We want to express our appreciation to the City Bar and its staff for making this virtual ceremony possible. We also want to thank all of you for coming. And truly, we do look forward to celebrating the medal next year in person at the City Bar Association. Congratulations to all our winners, and thank you very much for your welcome remarks, Judge Brody. And with that, we conclude the ceremony. Good evening.